So a very warm welcome to all of you from both myself, Christopher Young, and from Michael. Just to give you a really quick flavour of what we're hoping to cover today, we'll do some really quick introductions and then start getting into the meat of today about knowing who your client is, the different types of clients, and then Michael's going to just sort of describe, I guess, the corporate data market and how to maybe choose who your providers could or should be and what to look for. And then we'll finish up with a quick, I say quick, a demonstration of how you can use some of these tools in particularly the Intapp toolset, because that's what we do. But we will just, show you what some of this stuff looks like. So with that in mind, just to give you a really quick, some of you don't sort of know us. So my name's Christopher Young. I lead the risk and new business intake practice here at Pinnacle. And I also happen to be our CMO. And then Michael has joined me today. And do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Michael?
Yes, thank you, Christopher. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Fitzgerald, Legal Account Director for Moody's Analytics. I've been with the business now for around 7 years, where I've been working with a whole host of different firms of different sizes, but very often involved in implementation and integration projects, which is often working with Pinnacle and their team. Perhaps I'll cover the rest later on.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So just for those of you that don't know anything about Pinnacle, we are a sort of consultancy pretty much exclusively focused on the legal sector. And we have a number of, I guess, 3 parts to our business, really. We have a implementation consulting business, which is where my team sits. We have a small software business, and we have a managed service sort of business. So once we put in the software, we help firms look after it. From a sort of consulting perspective, we have 3 key practices, 3 or 4 key practices. So we have a finance systems practice, which largely implements Elite's 3 product. We have my risk and new business intake practice, which focuses on implementing the Intapp toolset for new matters, matter maintenance, AML, client due diligence, that sort of stuff. And then we have a business development practice, which focuses on helping firms implement and exploit their CRM systems, particularly Intapp's Deal Cloud product. We work with a number of key partners, Intapp being a very significant one from a risk and new business intake perspective. And we work with Michael's team and have done for years, bringing in Moody's data. We have a Microsoft partnership and, as I've said, the Elite partnership for the finance systems piece. That was all I was really going to. We're about 160 people around the world. So we've recently opened an Australian office, but we've got people in Australia, North America, the UK, and in continental Europe. So we try and span the world. So that's all I was really going to say about Pinnacle sort of globally. In terms of our risk and new business intake compliance team, it's a really focused team. We've got, we only work with a small number of products. We've got a business analysts and technical consultants. We work really closely with Intapp, with Moody's and Nexus around their Acuity product. We've got experience around the Intapp product for intake, for conflicts, for Intapp terms and walls. And we work with whatever flavor of the Intapp toolset you want, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, or if you're on-prem and you want to go to the cloud, we can help you with that too. And our clients are, well, they're fantastic. but they range from sort of Magic Circle global players to national players to regional players, and whether that's in the UK, whether it's in Europe or throughout the world. So we've seen pretty much everything and try and flex things to work for whichever markets you're in. As a team, one of the really powerful things from my perspective is I can draw on finance systems expertise, whether that's 3E or Adherent, software development, and you'll see some of our software development in a bit, and we also have a sort of this Microsoft team. So whatever you want to do, we've probably done something. Every client of ours is special and different, but we've probably done something pretty close to what you want to do. And our software development team has created some great products that augment the Intapp toolset, which we'll show you some of in a little bit later. So moving on to I guess to you as the attendees. Most of you are from the risk and compliance teams, and I guess our observation would be, and I'd love to say that it's very profound, but I don't think it is particularly. Every single team we work with is looking to drive down the costs of compliance, increase the speed with which they can open matters, and I guess increasingly we're seeing firms wanting to manage risks. So historically, I think it's fair to say that people sort of opened matters, and from the lawyer's point of view, the sort of risks involved weren't terribly considered. We're seeing regulators driving a change in terms of what people need to consider and what they need to be seen to be doing. So those are three things that we're seeing effectively across, I think, every firm that we work with in different and with a different focus in different firms. And what we've done is I've worked with Charlotte and our marketing team to put together a webinar series over the next few months. We want to try and build a community where we share some of the stuff that we see going on in firms and how you might be able to tackle some of those things. So this is the first in a series of webinars where we're going to try and address a particular challenge in a relatively short period of time, and show you the art of the possible. So these are the topics, and this is, as I say, the first one. So the focus of today is really around reducing the cost and increasing the speed with which firms can open matters and fulfill their regulatory requirements. There are future ones which will focus on that, managing the risk. So this first one is really around corporate and sort of address data and improving that. So whilst I said that today was really focused around reducing the cost and speeding up the clearances, fundamental to every new business intake process is knowing who your client is. And there are essentially, in our very simplistic world, two types of entity. There are organizations and there are individuals. And most of today will be focused on organizations, but the sort of key questions are, which organization is instructing us? What type of organization is it? Who's it owned by? Who are its beneficial owners? Those sort of key questions are the key questions which you need to be able to answer in order to be able to do any sort of risk management, and getting the answers to these questions quickly and without lots of scrabbling around is relatively easy to, with the help of our friends like Michael, relatively easy to do, and we'll show you a bit more of that. Individuals are a little trickier, but again, there are integrations that you can use to identify individuals. I've sort of said at the bottom of the slide, joint clients. Lots of firms we work with sort of say, well, we've got organizations, we've got individuals, and we've got joint clients. I would sort of say we see that slightly differently, and we'll cover that in session 3, the how you manage joint clients and risk assess those and gather the data around those. So key to managing to accelerating these clearances is getting it right first time. Who is our client? So that is a fundamental question, and we're gonna go to a poll and just ask you the question: who should determine and tell the compliance team who is the client or who the client is? And I think it's fair to say we see all 3 of these being seen as the primary source in different clients. So if you can vote, that would be brilliant. Sadly, I don't get a vote, I'm told on my screen, which I think is unfair and undemocratic. Are all the votes in? We've got 25 out of the 33 attendees. "26. We're getting there. So what do we think the answers are? Charlotte, can you share? Here they come. Brilliant. Well, so 87% of you think that the matter partner should determine who the client is. I completely agree or disagree with the one who says it should be the secretary. I'm afraid. What's interesting is the conflicts team. We have a small number of firms where they are using the conflicts team to determine who the client is. I think it's really hard for them, and you end up creating a host of dialogue. But we will come back to this sort of question a bit later on, and we'll see whether we sway things at all with what we're going to show you and what we're going to talk about. So using external data providers, we can really clearly demonstrate that we can speed up the clearances, we can reduce the costs, and we can improve data quality. It's really relatively straightforward to do. Just to give you take a really simple example, Coolmore Home Loans Limited. Most of us probably have no idea about Coolmore Home Loans Limited. It's part of the Barclays Group, so but you wouldn't know that from its name. You can derive an enormous amount of risk assessment stuff by knowing that it's owned by Barclays. In terms of when we get to wanting to conflict search Coolmore Home Loans Limited, because we know that it's owned by Barclays, we can populate, when we come to doing the conflict search, we can populate additional search terms, such as the beneficial owners, the global ultimate owner, and who its parent is. And we've done some really interesting work with one firm where effectively we've lifted a whole host of terms from the corporate tree and put that into the conflict search completely automatically. By grabbing this data from Michael and others, we can also populate things like the industry sector. We can also determine whether the organization is listed. We can tell you what jurisdictions it's operating in. All of that stuff done with no fingers touching keyboards. And then the other really valuable thing about these external data providers and doing this in particular ways is that we can grab a snapshot of the data as it is today. One of the key things that we advocate is that from a regulatory point of view, every so often you will make a bad decision. And the key question is, what did you know when you made that decision? The challenge with all of the external data providers is that they are continually maintaining their data, and you can't wind back to the 12th of October 2021 and look at the data as it was on that date very easily when you made your decision to act for organization X. So we can grab that data programmatically and put it into a PDF and stick it into your new matter request. So and that all happens automatically and seamlessly and with no effort. So you get better quality data faster, and you can make some decisions based upon some of the stuff that you can download. So I guess the key thing is, if there are these huge benefits, how do you then choose who your data provider should be? And so I think I'm going to hand over to Michael, who's just going to describe, we know Michael and the team at Moody's really well, love working with them, but there are other providers. And so Michael's going to just talk to you a bit about Moody's and how they fit into the market and how to assess the market. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Christopher. Too kind as always. But just to reiterate that point, we have embarked on a large number of journeys with clients on integration projects. I'll cover a little bit of that today, and hopefully Christopher will revert back with the demonstration portion on some of the specifics. First of all, just to address that we are Moody's Analytics to be precise, but it's worth knowing that you might recognize me and other members of our team from Bureau van Dijk historically. The reason being we are now part of the same firm. Since 2017, we have been a part of the Moody's Analytics division. Now, people, when they look at Moody's, it's not necessarily a brand that has always jumped out to the legal market because people often mistake us as a ratings agency only. You might be aware, but that is certainly not the case anymore. And as you can see from this graphic, we have a whole other half of the business that covers data, systems, and I guess a myriad of other solutions that service distinct client requirements across different verticals. We do, however, have a major focus on risk data, where we are heavily used for assessing clients' onboarding procedures. And our major USP is probably our ownership data, where we deliver the most in-depth source of corporate structured information in the world. This is typically, or at least on a fundamental level, accessed via our flagship global database, Orbis, which covers in excess of 460 million companies at the moment across every jurisdiction in the world. We do that with a rather unique data collection model, where we're effectively using a mix of public registry data, information partners, and also have teams dedicated to collecting information, our own information on ownership and mergers and acquisitions. So if we go forward a step, we do realize that it can be very difficult to decide on an information partner. As Christopher mentioned, there are a number of providers that do exist, but it is important to know that many of these have a very well-defined focus on either a specific surface area or a particular region that they're covering. So the decision is actually a lot easier than people might initially think. Now, this graphic in front of you actually comes from Chartis, who are a renowned independent research company who focus on risk technologies, and they have recently published, I think potentially even this summer or near enough, they published research defining some of the key providers in this space. It ultimately will depend on what you need. So if you're looking and are interested in PEPs and sanctions information only, you might have a particular focus on firms like LexisNexis, Moody's, or even Dow Jones for that more refined service focus, and also an output that is perhaps recognizable and reputable. illustrated perhaps a little bit more on the right table there. If you're looking at something that's a little bit more ID and verification focused, so a little bit more on the passport checking side, then GB Group and others might have a particular focus that you'd want to follow. But if you want a combined solution that tackles multiple parts of the risk process, then Moody's fits in as a leader in both the KYC data and KYC solutions, as you can see here. So we can help on both an information and a system level, which Christopher will probably highlight later on today and in the series beyond it. So just to round things off from my side and touching upon that last point again, Christopher recently described Moody's as being like an onion with multiple layers. And within that, we have the ability to draw upon and choose multiple components in a single solution, or you can prioritize and maybe even phase in certain parts of it over time. Now, most typically from our perspective, this would start with the fundamental company data from Orbis. And Orbis at the moment is a system, a company database that is the database of choice for 90% of the top 50 international law firms. And one of the reasons for that is because of its extensive range of data, but also because of the ease of use when integrating with systems like Intapp. And I will have to credit to some extent Pinnacle's team for making that sing within the system itself. But we then do have a very strong offering in the realm of PEPs and sanctions and adverse media data too, which comes through our own grid database, which you may have come across before. Not only is this data mapped across all of our entity and individual data within our Orbis user interface, but as Christopher will come back to at some point, it can also be surfaced via API. Finally, we own a business by the name of Company with a K, just to confuse things, which specializes in real-time document collection. And as part of that, we can run what we call a concierge service for a more bespoke document collection service. And for many firms, this kind of puts the icing on the cake, but ultimately it will depend on the requirements that do vary from firm to firm on whether documents are required or not, as the case may be. Now, our services don't end here, as you might imagine, but if you do have any questions on other parts and aspects like credit, ESG, cyber risk ratings, which is a slightly newer offering, please feel free to contact me after. We will have follow-up sessions as well and some things that Christopher will come back to. But for the time being, I'll leave things there. So Christopher, back to you. And just before we do move on, is there anything you feel I've missed from those slides?
Is that a question to me?
That's a question for you, yeah.
No, I don't think so. We've worked with Orbis for years and found it really easy. The thing that we do is we work with the APIs. So whether that's getting Orbis data or grid data, I don't think we've worked with anyone to get company data, but we've definitely have a number of clients running grid, and we have lots of clients running Orbis. We've been working with you, I guess, for probably 10, 12 years on that stuff.
Yeah, indeed.
Cool. Thank you very much for that. What I hope Michael's done for everyone on the call is to give them some sort of thoughts around how to think about that data market, because there are lots of providers, and we quite often get asked, so what's the difference between Orbis and Dun Bradstreet, or company X and company Y? And from a Pinnacle point of view, we really like the Moody's team, but actually it's for you to choose the data provider you want to use, and to that end, one of the things that we've done is to try and open up the Intapp platform so that you can, in effect, have a bit more choice. And so to that end, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of jump into a sort of demo of a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a rather big new matter form, which we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to show you the native integration between Intapp and Orbis It's also available through Intapp, plugging into Dun Bradstreet. We'll also show you the offline integration. So the Intapp product has an inbuilt integration which drags some data in. If you want other data, we can in a process, in an offline integration, go and grab more data for you, and also we'll attach a PDF directly into the request. Having shown you that, what I'm then going to do is to show you a Pinnacle product, which is a real-time integration into Orbis. And the thing that we've done with the real-time integration is to also integrate into other data providers. And for this conversation, one of those is Companies House, which is ostensibly free, or the data is free. You have to pay Michael and the Moody's team for their data. And then also we have the ability to do a real-time lookup into our address data, which covers 240 something countries. So I'm going to ask Charlotte to stop sharing, and we'll then jump into my demo. So hopefully Charlotte's going to give me the nod that she can see my screen. Now, for those of you that haven't seen the Intapp toolset before, I'm not really here to sort of sell the Intapp toolset. It's really good, but this is a new matter request that I've sort of created. The questions can be whatever questions you want, but and I've also, so that you don't have to watch my appalling typing, I've filled out most of this request, but I haven't selected the client. So I'm just going to type in Cornwall Home Loans because I've already given the game away a bit earlier on, but you'll see that Pinnacle doesn't already know Cornwall Home Loans. They're not already a client. If I just show you in here, this is a question which will search our existing database, and the more you type, the shorter the list gets until it doesn't recognize anything, in which case I'm just going to go back to my Cornwall Home Loans. And you'll see here we've got this lookup party, and this is the inbuilt Intapp integration to your external data provider. And you can choose between BVD, Orbis, Moody's, or Dun Bradstreet, and I think there are some others, but I can't quite remember who they are off the top of my head. The only ones that we've worked with are Dun Bradstreet and Orbis. And so you'll see that I press search, look it up in BVD, and it's come back with a list of things that it thinks I might be talking about. So we're talking directly with Michael's 460 million companies. And if I select Cornwall Home Loans and pull that in, what that's doing is it's gone off and it said, great, that's the one I want. And it's pulled in some what Intapp call firmographic data. And this is all determined by Intapp and their integration. So you've got who's the global ultimate owner, you've got the registered address, we've got some industry classifications, etc. So, and we can would ordinarily do things like pre-populate many of these questions and take them off the form. So one of the neat things about doing these integrations is we can shorten the number of questions that we ask the fee earning community. And in a way, one of the things that has always struck me as strange in the sort of legal sector is we're never really quite sure who the client is. I started off life in financial services, and whenever we took a trade, our first question was, who is trading? And once you'd committed to trading on behalf of Christopher Young or whoever it was, that was it. That was who the trade was for. So we can populate most of this stuff, and I'll just show you how that sort of works. So we'll sort of see that we've, I hope I filled in all the questions, and I have, which is great. So I've submitted that, and what you'll see is that we've now got an integration that is running, going and getting some more BVD data. And that will take a few seconds to run. Hopefully it'll take just under a minute to do its thing. And well, hey, so that's sort of done its thing. And what we'll find under the client details is we've got a whole bunch of external additional questions that have appeared, which we've gone and populated, having gone and asked BVD for the data. So that is, if you like, between leaving the secretary and now arriving at the partner for their approval, it has gone and grabbed some additional data, which the partner might then be asked to review and agree with or disagree with. And we would often feed into the risk assessments. So I'm just going to, sorry, just before I, so one of the things you'll note here, so against a request in the Intapp toolset, we can attach files to a request. You'll see that there are no files here. I'm just going to approve this. I'm pretending that I'm a partner. So I'm going to approve this. And what this is going to go and do now is it's going to go and ask BVD for an Orbis report, and we'll attach that Orbis report to this request. So again, you'll see that there's sort of no manual intervention, and in a few minutes, the only challenge with Cornwall Home Loans is that it's quite a big, because it's effectively grabbing the Barclays request, Barclays file. What we'll see here is we've got the Orbis report, which if I click on this, it will show you that we've stamped into it. Here is the Orbis report. And what this means is that we know what data was presented and was available to us on the day that we decided we were going to act for Cornwall Home Loans. So what I've shown you there is, if I can just get back to my toolbar, us looking up a record in Orbis, and then in the workflow process, so offline, going off and grabbing data from the Orbis database. What I'm going to do now is to show you another way of integrating with systems. So let me get rid of that one. So I've got another request here, and this is using our real-time lookup, Pinnacle's real-time lookup technology. And we can connect this to anything to do a real-time lookup. And effectively, we charge a small license fee for the facility, but and then you need to pay for the data. In the case of Companies House, if I look up Pinnacle, it does mean that you still need to be able to type. So what we're doing here is we're looking at Companies House in real time. So this is UK only data, but it could be a Chamber of Commerce, the Dutch Chamber of Commerce, or, sorry, I don't quite know what's happened there. Let's just try that again. This was working half an hour ago. Well, hey, there we go. So what that's done is it's gone and pulled the data from UK Companies House. So we've got the company name, the company number, what type of company it is, etc., the industry sectors, the registered address, all of that, And that is effectively available if you're a UK company, or if you're any company anywhere in the world and you're looking for data about UK companies, that is effectively available to you for free in a real-time lookup in an Intapp form. If you wanted the international data, you would need to a tool like Orbis or BVD. What we've also done is we've created a lookup to a real-time address list. So let me just put in a postcode. So this and this again allows you to get better quality data more consistently because people aren't guessing it. So you'll see that I looked up an address, selected one, and then we've populated the lines of the address all in real time. There are 240 countries, I think, that our data set covers. And what's quite cool about some of this is that we can combine this this real-time lookup with addresses and things with the inbuilt BVD Intapp integration. So let me just show you another example. So if I choose standard chartered, it's not in our, we don't know about standard chartered. So we're going to look up in BVD for standard chartered. I think my internet's slightly slow. And I'm going to select standard chartered PLC. So this is grabbing the data out of BVD. We'll see that, you know, they are, this is the standard profile data, which is all sort of cool. What you'll also notice here is we've got an address that's in block capitals. What we've done is we've passed this address into our address lookup tool. So you'll see, you know, there's no postcode. So we've passed it into our address lookup tool and it's come back with the postcode. It's proper cased all of the address. But what we've also been able to do in real time is to ask additional questions of the Orbis database, and it is listed, and it's listed on the London Stock Exchange. That's all happened in real time. And what we're seeing firms do is passing this then into their client and matter risk scoring. So that's a really quick sort of demonstration of some of the power of this technology. And what it means is that we can do things faster. We can also put the bring the matter risk assessment further forward in your matter opening process. And what we are doing increasingly with firms is forking their matter risk, forking the process such that high risk things get routed one way and lower risk things get routed another. And we can do that because we've got that risk assessment data in much earlier. So that sort of completes the demonstration piece. Just and I guess I want to sort of round out with, you know, and somebody asked a question about the sort of the costs. There are definitely costs to buying in data, but there are real benefits because you can, I would argue, have fewer people because you know the data's better. You only need to look at those elements that are higher risk. But there are absolutely, it costs money to do this stuff. You also, if you're not careful, create a dependency on those data providers and them being there. And we would argue that you need to make sure when you design these things that the systems work when those data providers aren't there. And there's a sort of not quite a, I guess, a back to the manual process, if you like. And then one of the neat things about certainly our real-time lookup, the way we've designed it, the way the team have designed it, is that it needs less technical implementation skills. So our real-time address lookup, technical folk, as in IT folk, who are looking after the forms and workflows within clients, are effectively putting in that address lookup functionality themselves and managing that. And then the sort of final thing about these real-time lookups is that you get better quality data, and also you can have a snapshot of it at the moment in time that you made the decisions you did. Now, that sort of concludes what we wanted to go through today. We're trying to keep these nice and short because, as we all know, every risk team is far too busy. So that sort of pretty much concludes sort of session sort of 1. I guess just before we go, I thought it'd be good to share with you what the future sessions were and say, would you sign up for those? What would be interesting is to see whether we have swayed people to think in their thinking about whether who should put in the tell us who the client is. So Charlotte, I don't know whether we can quickly put up that same poll again and see where things have moved to. And just while you're doing that, if there are any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we will try and sort of grab them and deal with them before we collectively run away. So where have we got to in terms of the percentages? So hopefully this has been interesting. Ooh, interesting. So more are saying that the conflicts team, so that's gone up from 23% to 30. The partners has fallen from 87 to 52. And secretaries has gone up from 3% to 17. I wonder why that is. So if you originally hadn't voted for secretaries, and it'd be really good to hear from you as to why you are now voting for secretaries, and I guess where you moved from, and from the conflicts team, why you have moved to the conflicts team. So if you changed your vote, if you could email me with your rationale, I'd be really interested to hear sort of why. Yeah, really interesting. So that pretty much concludes what we wanted to cover today. If you think it was interesting, there are people that should have been on the call that weren't. Two things: can you forward on the invites for the future sessions, and point them in the direction of the recordings, and I guess it's really just for me to say a really big thank you to all of you for giving up 45 minutes of your day. I hope you found it useful, inspiring, thought-provoking, etc. And also to say thank you to Michael for sharing a bit about the market and how you might think about it and assess it.